Is the question of home and all that big word calls to mind with respect to community, family, place, heritage, culture, even sexuality is a kind of home for me. So, and it's been with me since I was perhaps before I was even born. As I like to say, I was made in Cuba, assembled in Spain, and imported to the United States, which means my mom left 7 months pregnant from Cuba to Madrid as exiles. I was born in Madrid, and 45 days after my birth, we immigrated once again to the United States. So by the time I was 45 days old, I belonged to 3 countries, to Spain, Cuba, and the United States, and yet to none. So that kind of started that question subconsciously. And it started becoming conscious in City of 100 Fires. So this is a very old poem that since this is a Neon Selected, I want to take you a little bit on a journey of some of the poems and what that evolution of home looks like in the book. So in my very first creative writing class, I'm also a civil engineer most of my adult life, but I decided to write poetry for fun. And I'd get to my first creative writing graduate course, and my mentor to this day, Campbell McGrath, shares some poems from Ginsberg and Whitman and Frost, and my first assignment was write a poem about America. And I went home and went, what America are these folks talking about? I'm born and raised, not born, but raised in Miami, practically almost born. So I just thought maybe I shouldn't quit my day job. So I went home and scribbled a poem about the most American thing I could imagine, which was Thanksgiving, which is, and that's what you'll see in this poem, sort of little Ricky sort of negotiating both his American identity and his Cuban identity, like you had mentioned, and what that means. And just so you know, for Cubans, pork is not the other white meat, it's the only meat. And we still don't get Thanksgiving. In fact, most Latinos call it Thanksgiving, like San Francisco or San Ignacio. So anyway, some poems go away, but this one has a very special place in my heart because it opened the floodgates of those questions that I didn't know I had been born with. And it's a whimsical look at it as well. And I titled it America. Although Tia Miriam boasted she discovered at least half a dozen uses for peanut butter, topping for guava shells and syrup, butter substitute for Cuban toast, hair conditioner and relaxer, Mama never knew what to make of the monthly 5-pound jars handed out by the immigration department until my friend Jeff mentioned, jelly? There was always pork though, for every birthday and wedding, whole ones on Christmas and New Year's Eves, even on Thanksgiving Day. Pork, fried, broiled, or crispy skin roasted, as well as cauldrons of black beans, fried plantain chips, and yuca con mojito. These items required a special visit to Antonio's Mercado on the corner of 8th Street, where men in Guayabera stood in Senate blaming Kennedy for everything. Ese cabrón. A vial of Cuban coffee and cigar residue filling the creases of their wrinkled lips, clinging to one another's lies of lost wealth, ashamed and empty as hollow trees. By 7, I had grown suspicious. We were still here. Overheard conversations about returning to Cuba had grown wistful and less frequent. I spoke English. My parents didn't. We didn't live in a 2-story house with a maid or wood panel station wagon, nor vacation camping in Colorado. None of the girls in my family had hair of gold. None of my brothers or cousins were named Greg, Peter, or Marcia. We weren't the Brady Bunch, and none of the black and white characters on Donna Reed or the Dick Van Dyke Show were named Guadalupe, Lázaro, or Mercedes. Patty Duke's family wasn't like us either. They didn't have pork on Thanksgiving. They ate turkey with cranberry sauce. They didn't have yuca. They had yams, like the diddles of pilgrims that I colored in class. So a week before Thanksgiving, I explained to my abuelita about the Indians and the Mayflower, how Lincoln set the slaves free. I explained to my parents about the Purple Mountain's majesty, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, the cherry tree, the tea party, the amber waves of grain, the masses yearning to be free, liberty and justice for all, until finally they agreed this Thanksgiving we would have turkey, as well as pork. Abuelita prepared the poor fowl as if committing an act of treason, faking her enthusiasm for my sake. Mama set a frozen pumpkin pie in the oven and prepared candied yams following instructions I had to translate from the marshmallow bag. The table was arrayed with gladiolas. The platter turkey loomed at the center on plastic silver from Woolworths. I uttered a bilingual blessing and the turkey was passed around like a game of Russian roulette. Dry, Gilberto complained. and proceeded to drown the lean slices with pork fat drippings and la mierda roja esa, as he complained about cranberry sauce, jelly. Faces fell when Mama presented her ochre pie. Pumpkin, calabaza, was a home remedy for ulcers, not a dessert. Tia Maria made 3 rounds of Cuban coffee, then Abuelo and Pepe cleared the living room furniture, put on a Cela Cruz LP, and the entire family began to merengue over the linoleum of our apartment, sweating rum and coffee. Sweating rum and coffee, until they remembered it was already 1976 and 46 degrees in America. Thank you.